Hannah. Without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce you to today's speakers, Hannah Courtney and Barb Modi. So starting with Barb, Barb is the Customer Satisfaction Market Research Manager at Pacific Power and Rocky Mountain Power, electric utilities serving more than 2 million customers in 6 Western states. In this role, Barb manages and directs research to identify gaps in customer satisfaction and develops plans to improve satisfaction to meet business goals. With a background in communication, she works with cross-functional internal teams and outside vendors, including Bidgely, to facilitate satisfaction initiatives and measure the results. And for our next speaker today, we have Hannah Courtney. As the Director of Customer Success at Bidgely, Hannah ensures that Bidgely's partnerships with their utility customers in North America flourish. Hannah also oversees all behavioral energy efficiency and demand response projects in all stages of a project's life cycle. Before her 3.5 years at Bidgely, Hannah previously spent 9 years at ICF, where as a program manager, she designed and delivered innovative programs, proposals, and presentations to communicate client-focused and data-driven recommendations. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Hannah.
Thanks so much, Michaela. And thanks again to Barb for joining us today. So I'll kick us off by setting the stage a little bit. So I think that anytime we sort of talk about an engagement or a group of customers and how they're doing, it's really important to understand the overall context and how those customers are treated sort of beyond the scope of what we're talking about. And so to set the stage a little bit in that respect, J.D. Power came out with a report last November that talked about the state of SMB satisfaction with their utilities. And overall, they sort of the headline of the press release is that utilities, the opinion of utilities from SMBs is it's continuing sort of its slide towards the negative territory. They suggested that utilities need to establish a stronger collaboration with these high value customers. And so, Barb, you oversee the CSAT market research for 2 utilities, and 2 of those are in the top 7 performers for the West Large region, both Pacific Power and Rocky Mountain Power. And you are seeing something quite different, which we're going to talk a lot more about today. So, but I would like to hear from you. Does what J.D. Power has to say resonate with you and what you're seeing among your customer base?
Yes, I would agree with you, Hannah, that what we're seeing is that we do need to create a stronger collaboration with these customers. They are hard to reach, and they tend to be smaller, busy, and one way we found to do that is by sending them personalized communications that kind of cut through some of that clutter and give them meaningful insights into their electricity use, as well as ideas for how to save money. And I think this is especially important in a time when prices for electricity are rising across the country. It's kind of well known that many utilities have been raising their rates in the last couple of years, and customers are feeling a bit of a pinch. So anything we can do to kind of bridge that gap for them or help them save energy, I think is useful to them and meaningful.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and I really like that thought of programs like these as a bridge. And I think that what's important about that bridge is that it's structured well. So when you're standing on it, it's not one of those rope bridges where it's a little bit shaky. We want to make sure that when we're providing that bridge, that it makes sense to the end customer. And so something that we, is a foundation of this program and our work with Rocky Mountain Power and Pacific Power, but also sort of across the board when we're thinking about engaging with SMBs, is that there's a recipe involved. So I love baking. If anybody's ever heard me talk, I usually find a way to like throw a baking analogy in. But to me, this is the recipe for creating that better relationship that we're seeing at these 2 utilities. And it's especially true with SMBs. So a couple of things that sort of go into, or that we're seeing go into the better data and the better touch points are, data in is data out. right? So making sure that you have the disaggregated data, right? So taking that information that you're getting from SMBs and putting it into an algorithm to be able to help them have personalized outputs, as well as like past program participation. Accurate business types is also really important. You don't want to people very rarely enjoy being compared to their neighbors. So I can't imagine if we compare, a hair salon to an accountant, like how they would feel about that. So that's an element that you could think about here as well. And then also making sure that you're reaching the right customer. So Barb, you said something about how these customers are really busy. And they have two resources that are limited. It's both time and quite often like monetary limitations. So making sure that you're reaching the right person for it to be meaningful is important. And then also being able to integrate sort of a business profile of, if you get feedback from a customer that, hey, we've changed some of our HVAC equipment, they need to be able to integrate that into their experience. So the touch points that they get out around their appliance profile, their tips and recommendations are relevant to their business and to their consumption patterns, as well as, that ends with a decision maker of somebody who can improve that. And all of those things, build the trust, improve customer sentiment, and drive output to potentially other programs. So I want to talk about like what does that actually look like in practice and what your experience has been. So the next question is, to you, Barb. Can you walk us through the journey of what kind of impact you're seeing when you've gone through this experience?
Sure. Yeah, I'd happy to. So in 2020, late 2020, we launched the reports for Rocky Mountain Power, and we launched them in Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming. And so we sent the reports for a full year, and in 2021, we had our best JD Power scores ever for Rocky Mountain Power. In fact, it was just striking. The scores jumped up. Now, keep in mind, this was kind of during COVID. There were other things going on, and everybody was kind of doing better in customer satisfaction that year because there were more programs available to business customers, a lot more like payment arrangements, and like they had longer to pay their bills sometimes. So there were other things happening, but still, it was a 35-point jump, which was kind of unheard of for us. I mean, if we had 3 points, 10 points, that was a really good jump. So it went up 35 points. We went from number 10 in the West Large up to the number 2 spot, which was huge. And then nationally, we went from rank 54 to rank 9, and we'd never been in the top 10 before. So this was pretty exciting for us. And we the only thing different that we really had done that year were these reports. Yeah, it was really the only thing we could pinpoint that what would account for this big jump. So we took those results and we decided, gosh, we had such good results that we should expand it and push it into our Pacific Power territory. So we started working on that with Bidgely, and during that time, we were also nominated for an award with the Smart Energy, Consumer Collaboration, SECC, and we won an award for Best SMB Engagement for best practices. So that was pretty exciting too. And that happened in 2022. And so late in 2022, like September, we launched in Washington, and in November, we launched in Oregon. And so in 2021, we had a full year of these reports going to customers twice each month and delivered by email, no paper reports, it's all email. They get them, directly to them and personalized with their information. And in 2021 or 2023, this last year, in the report that Hannah was shown at the beginning of the PowerPoint, I guess, we had actually met our goals for Pacific Power, Rocky Mountain Power. And those goals were internal goals that the company sets of where we should be for customer satisfaction. So that was the first time we'd done that since 2016. So we were pretty excited that it all kind of came together and we actually could make a difference in customer satisfaction. Because sometimes it seems like it's not easy to move that needle. It's just like, how do you how do you reach these customers? And oops, I do have a cat, so apologies. He's
I have
a
a
little
dog
loud.
so we're
So
animal friendly here.
oh,
Yeah,
good, very good. So that's kind of our story and how we moved the needle in between 2020 and 2023 for customer sat.
awesome. So I'm going to take us back in time to that 2020, and talk to me a little bit about, it sounds like it became a priority for you all to address these customers and to make an impact on these rankings, right? And so talk to me about what was the state of affairs with your relationships with these customers at that time.
I would say it was kind of sporadic. We'd come up with campaigns. We might do kind of a short burst of contact with them, either through direct mail or email, but then it would stop. And it wasn't a continuous effort. It was more of a hit and miss, occasional reach out to them, hope for the best kind of thing. And yeah, it just wasn't consistent. And I think that is the huge difference between what we were doing before and what we're doing with these reports, is that these go out twice a month automatically. And before, we really had to think about it. We had to come up with these campaigns and push them out ourselves. And it just wasn't happening. We also had done a newsletter several years before, and we kind of discontinued that because the stories were kind of repeated and kind of tired, and it was difficult with internal resources, just coming up with all that content on a regular basis. And so that kind of fizzled out. So there wasn't a lot of really good content that we were feeding to these customers, and our scores were kind of lagging. It just wasn't doing anything. So that was kind of our state of affairs before.
Yeah, yeah, and I can certainly, I would say that we've seen that like a similar story elsewhere with utilities, because like you were saying, these groups are hard to reach, but they're also so diverse. So coming up with content that resonates with all of the different business types that are in your service territory is like, that's a mountain of a task. But when you have sort of a tool that can adapt, automatically, like a technology, it certainly sort of takes the burden, and makes it a lot easier. So I appreciate those thoughts. So, when you think about like putting the program together, with Bidgely, and what I would say, so the question is, what are some of the challenges that informed your program design, but sort of what was most important, what are the most important needs that you wanted to meet with these groups?
Well, I think from internally, we decided to treat it as marketing rather than as savings. I know a lot of these programs, especially with home reports, they are based on savings. And this is not a savings program. This is a marketing program. And that gave us a lot of freedom to not only fund it, but also to include messaging that might not be considered purely DSM. So we are able to work in messages that touch on customer satisfaction drivers. We might talk about what we're doing to improve infrastructure and reliability, how our vegetation management crews are out there working, or what we're doing with wildfire mitigation. We include those along with how you can sign up for energy efficiency or some low cost tips or links to our programs and incentives for HVAC or lighting or whatever those programs might be. We know most of these customers, most every business has some sort of a heating and cooling system and a light system. So those are the two consistencies with almost every business, whether it's a tire shop or a hair salon. They all have some sort of conditioning and lighting. The other tools that they use might vary a lot. Hair salons usually don't have compressed air, but they have other things. So we've just found the consistencies that might make it resonate with everybody, and then the usage insights are also unique to each customer, and that's where we wanted to share that information with them.
Great, appreciate that. And so, on that, you start sharing these insights, you move through the 21, 22, 23, and all of this time, you're getting these responses back from JD Power. But what I always find really exciting, and I'm always so glad that you all do this because it takes it a layer deeper, is that you've done your own sort of data-driven insights in asking the SMB customers themselves what they find. So let's talk a little bit about some of that work that you've done and the responses that you've gotten from these customers. So I'll hand it over to you. You know, where were the areas of value that really stood out when you took this a level deeper?
So this is a separate study that we conduct with Escalent Research, and with our commercial customers. And the green line in this case are customers who recall the business energy reports, and the blue bars are customers who do not recall the energy industry, the reports rather. And so we just found this fascinating, that anybody who recalled the reports gave us higher scores than those who did not. And especially fascinating for topics that were not related to energy efficiency, like helping the local economy. How does this report change their perception of that? And I'm not really sure how it does, other than it gives them information, and maybe as an aggregate, they see that if they are receiving information that helps them save energy, then that lifts their opinion of what we as a company are doing to help the local economy, because more businesses are saving energy. That's just my assumption. I don't know. But it also gives us an opportunity to talk about community things in the reports. We might be able to tell them about sponsorship of a local organization within their state or something in that report, and they could click on it for more information. So something like that might trigger that. But also providing information on how to control your electricity costs. That's right, directly related to pricing. And even though the rates have gone up in some of these states, they still give us a 10-point bump on that score when they get these reports. And I do think it is the regular communication, that it's consistent, they see it month after month, and that influences some of these perceptions. One thing you might notice is in the two taller bars there, the providing reliable service and keeping you informed about an outage. The gaps there between the people who recall the reports and the people who don't is much more narrow. And I think that is not surprising, because an outage is a more of a real experience. These reports are more perception driven. So when you do have an outage, and you do want to stay informed. That's important, because you're running a business. If you lose power, it affects your bottom line. It affects how you treat your customers and your workforce. If you have to send everybody home for the day, you lost a lot of money. So they want to stay informed, and that gap is still a little bit higher for the people who get the reports, but not as significant as in some of the other categories. So if you go to the next slide for Pacific Power.
Yeah, let's do it. See if my computer will cooperate. He's got some things to say. There we go. Go ahead.
So this is Oregon and Washington, and this is just 1 year of data from 2023. And we see a very similar pattern. The scores are not quite as high with Pacific Power, but still the line and the pattern is almost the same. So I think it just kind of goes to show that if we hadn't done this, our scores would have been much lower overall for overall satisfaction. Maybe if the customer takes a survey and they would have given us a 7, maybe in this they give us an 8 instead, or they gave us an 8 instead of a 9 instead of an 8. And those little bumps make a difference in boosting these percentages up for satisfaction. Same pattern. So
absolutely. And what I find interesting is, there are a couple of places where, like what you mentioned about the helping the local economy. I remember reading an analyst report about what's important to SMBs, and like community was so high on that list, because they're part of the community and they're contributing directly to the community. So it's really exciting to sort of see that there, because it's obviously helped resonate with the sentiment. And then the other one that really that I see as well is the electricity costs and helping them control that. That one was another place where there was a big bar between. So really cool stuff. But you also let them sort of speak in their own words, right? So what did they have to say?
So we did ask them a question if they did anything differently as a result of the information they received from the report. And, a lot of them didn't put any comments in, but several put in actual comments and said, yes, we invested in a new HVAC system. I mean, that's directly tied back to your programs, and what could be better than that? But then there are behavioral changes, that they maybe adjusted the temperature and of the thermostat, or they found the information useful. All of that information is, I think, contributes to the value that these reports bring. And even if they didn't provide some comments, they might have just seen it, and that increases awareness. And awareness is usually lifts satisfaction over non-awareness. So it's a good outcome.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I could, in our prep, from one of our prep calls, I'm sure that you know that I could probably talk about this all day long, because it's something, it's such an important group to be able to address. But I do want to give the crowd the opportunity to ask us some questions. And so I'll go ahead and open it up. Michaela, I think, is going to help us run through the questions. But while people are thinking about those, Barb, I would say, can you tell us maybe sort of 3 key takeaways that you would want to share with another utility who's thinking about this, or even one? Up to you.
Sure. Yeah, I think that customers really do appreciate personalized information. They appreciate seeing their usage insights. For some of these customers, it's maybe the first time they've seen a breakdown of how the equipment in their business is using energy, and that's eye-opening. They can see that the patterns between the hours of the day or the days of the week, and which types of equipment are pulling the most energy, and that gives them. Information is power, so it gives them opportunities to take that information and act on it, and recognize when things might not be working as well as they could, and they can make adjustments. It gives them control. I really think that that's a key part of this. The other part of it is that these reports are really streamlined. We look at the content a couple times a year and make sure that it's in line with what we want to communicate, but then it kind of goes automatic. Bidgely runs the algorithm and the disaggregation, and they send the reports, so we don't have to think about it. And that's another plus, because we have a lot of other things we're doing, and we sometimes drop the ball. So I think it's good that it's set up, it's automated, and it's ready to go. I'd also like to just reiterate, these reports are one tool in the toolbox. They help with communicating key messages, but they don't replace really good outage communications or a really good care center. That's all part of the equation as well. You have to be there for the customers on multiple fronts, but this is a good bridging tool to get your messages out on a regular basis without a huge lift. And I think that's kind of the win-win of it. And every interaction you have with a customer matters. So it's helpful that these are personalized and delivered by email. JD Power tells us that email is the best way to get messages to customers, or it's what they prefer. So if that's the case, then send it through their preferred channel, and they'll probably notice it. At least, maybe not every time, but 2 out of 3 times they'll notice it, and that's repetition and reach and frequency, kind of the basic nuts and bolts of media, but that's how you get your messages out to them consistently.
Cool. Awesome, Barb. Thank you. Well said. Yeah, go ahead, Michaela.
Yeah, and we have some questions coming in. So first and foremost, which insights have you found are most helpful to SMBs? And either of you can answer it.
Yeah, Barb, I can share some off the top, and then if you want to add to it. So I would say that when we look across all of our programs, we see, I actually did sort of a count of the frequency of the different types of words that people were using on the open form feedback, because we have a feedback form where we get, we prompt them about cost and, how they respond, but really it's sort of what we were seeing was sort of in the words like informed and usage and like energy. So it really is like making sure that the utility, or that the customers understand like what they are using every day and down to the appliance level. And those are the types of insights that we have seen resonate. But Barb, I'll let you speak to that as well.
Well, I would definitely agree with you that the usage insights are really valuable, that they can see into their utility bill. And I think the other part of it is we're sending them something that isn't a bill. It's something that's useful, that's related to their bill, but it's not their bill. So it's useful information. And anytime you can get a meaningful touch point in front of a customer, that's a good thing, and something they spend more than 5 seconds with. So if you can get them to spend, a couple minutes with it, that's huge. Because the average open rate on an email is, if you can get them to spend 5 seconds, that's considered good. So this is a way more. They get way more time with it, and that's that's a plus.
Awesome. And then the next question is going back to the elements of getting it right that you guys touched on earlier in the webinar on appliance-based consumption. What kind of DISAG is supported for SMB programs, and why is that important?
I could take that one, Barb.
I think maybe you can take
That's a
that one,
tech
Hannah. It's more of
question.
a tech question.
Yeah. So, we're able to do, disaggregate across 4 different types, including things like operational load, and, heating and cooling. So it's those different, categories. And I think they're actually listed on here as well, on the screen. So, there's the 4 different categories that we're able to do. And, Barb was saying, is that, they all have lighting and they all have some kind of load that helps them condition their spaces. And so, those are the really big ones that it's important to be able to detect. But I think, sort of the extra sort of like icing on the cake is, when you can do things with more granular data, like being able to identify like when their operating hours are, so utilities can, or customers can actually see, oh, why is my lighting on all night long, right? Because that's something that we don't want to happen, right? Because people aren't in the buildings. So that's sort of an easy fix for them. It's one of those things that's like low cost, no cost, is being able to identify that kind of stuff.
Awesome. So we've got quite a number of questions, so this is exciting. The next question is, what technology makes this data available to you to see the different usage of their HVAC versus lighting, etc.?
Yeah, so that's another technology question. So that is the consumption data of the customer. So we gather that from our utility partners, and we feed that into Bidgely's artificial intelligence backed disaggregation algorithms. And it takes, so we use AI, and we ingest that information, and we're able to sort of see the fingerprints of the different equipment types or the different equipment categories. And we take that information, identify sort of, when we're seeing the same fingerprint, and then we're able to share that data back to the customer.
Awesome. The next question is, what is the definition of small, medium business? The definition of small, medium business, what was this based on? The size of the company, annual kilowatt usage, or what?
I would say we usually, so there are limitations if you get too large, sort of on the meaningfulness of the data output. Because as soon as you sort of stray into C&I, it's something that's certainly possible that, we would, talk to whoever is interested in how that's supported. But as far as like SMB goes, we actually lean on our utility partners to define those groups. Because they usually already have a preset segment for what's SMB and then what's commercial and industrial. So, like I said, why we support, they have the ability to support both. This one is focused around SMBs. And Barb, do you want to talk about how you all define that? How you cut off the line?
Yeah, I think it is looking at, it's both a revenue and a kilowatt hour usage base. We excluded our largest customers from this for sure. most of those customers are managed, what we call managed accounts, and they have an account manager, and it's just not necessarily a good fit for them. So it was the customers who didn't fit into that profile, but were, I guess, smaller or mid-sized businesses that could benefit from the information. And we queried that in our data to determine who should get it and send it to Bidgely.
It's that bridge, right? Who's right for the bridge? And it sounded like some of those larger customers often already have a bridge that's a person, right? And what I've seen around the country is that, the ability to sort of have that one-on-one relationship with SMBs is getting harder and harder, sort of like a human to human that's assigned. So yeah. Thanks, Barb. That was
reiterate that we don't have account managers for our SMB customers.
exactly. Yep.
We have a dedicated care center, and those agents are trained to answer questions for business customers, but they are not dedicated to that specific customer. So this is a way to reach them with a personalized message without it doesn't replace a person, but it helps.
Awesome. And the next question is, are you using AMI data to generate the reports?
We can use both.
And we're using AMI data in Oregon, and starting to get that ready for our Rocky Mountain Power States. But it's both. It's a combination because we have AMR data in Washington. Mixture that makes it a little more complex in getting it all set up. But once it's set up, it works great.
Yeah, but I also appreciate that, so while AMI is unlocks a lot of sort of like richer sort of information, like availability, that you can still get there when you don't have AMI available. This is still a solution. So I think that, and the fact that you see like really great results on both sides, Barb, sort of speaks to, that it's still helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. Works regardless of which meter you're using.
Great. Next question is, did the BERs contain information showing how the SMB compared to other SMBs in their area or by industry?
No. We don't do any of those types of comparisons. It's unlike the home reports where you get those comparisons. And part of the reason is because the pool is a little smaller, I think, and I'll put it back on us, but the data, we don't have the data collaborated very well on what type of business it is with SEC codes and that type of thing to do the accurate comparisons. So if our data was a little cleaner on that end, it might be possible, but it's just not there. That might be 2.0, let's say that.
Yeah. And to add on top of that is that, Bidgely has the ability to be able to do that. But with, what Barb said, if the recipes, that part of the recipe is something that, was acknowledged was not ready yet with the data that was going in, right? And so that's an important consideration to make when you're building out a program like this.
Awesome. All right, the next question is a little long, so bear with me if you guys want to open up it in the chat. It might be easier for you to read it there, but it's how did you best use the utility data you have to classify your customers as small business or large business? The JD Power rules consist of pieces of info utilities typically do not have. Did you end up purchasing those other data points to help classify your small business customers? Or did you strictly define these customers by usage? And if so, what usage did you use? Hopefully you got all that.
So let's see. We did, this kind of goes back to the previous question in that we looked at usage, and I don't know the cutoff points in the top of my head. We looked kind of at monthly bill size and also at kilowatt hour usage by month and cut it off at those specific points. We didn't do any, did you end up purchasing? No, we did not purchase any other data to help classify our small businesses. We wanted to reach as many of these business customers as possible. So if we were in doubt, we included them. And even if they maybe erred on the side of being too large, we were doing it, and we just, let's put as many in there as we can. So we knew we took out the giant customers, let's call them, and but the other ones, they got pulled in if we thought there was a possibility it could help them. Because again, it's not a savings tool for us. This is a marketing tool. So even if those customers are not strictly SMB, they can still get some of our messages. And we're not just pushing out energy efficiency messages, we're pushing out company messages as well. So those messages are still valid for these customers, even if they might be on the cusp of being too large.
Awesome. And what I would say is that those data sets are purchasable. They're available. So if someday that's something that we would want to do here or elsewhere, it's certainly a possibility.
Great. Next question is, how do you get the proper exogenous data beyond basic billing data? This ag is different for fast food versus a hardware store. How do you get equipment holdings, historical program participation, square footage, etc.? And then kind of separate, but how you ensure your customized recommendations are accurate?
So I'll take the first part of it. So first, and then the second part of it second. Excuse me. So the data outside of the consumption data, we actually also lean on the utility for, unless there's a third-party data set that we were purchasing. So you sort of on behalf of the utility customer. So like past program participation data, we ask for that. And we request that be sent to us, and that's something that we would include. And then square footage, for example, that's something that's also included in like available sets of data if the utility doesn't have it. Sometimes they have like a rough guess, sometimes they don't. But overall, it's something that is out there. I would say that, even there's no, aside from sort of doing an audit, like physically at the location and doing it sort of once a month, there's no sort of perfect like data set on SMBs, because they are like so they're just subject to sort of change, right? Businesses open and close with frequency. And so those data sets, it's important sort of to make sure that what you have is the most accurate at the time. And then as far as making sure that the recommendations are appropriate for the business type, is that we work collaboratively, with Barb. Like she said, they refresh the content every, quarter or a couple times a year, where we look at all of those recommendations, and they're, tagged by who that they would be sort of insightful to potentially show. And then there's also sort of this element of, in the back end, Bidgely's next best interaction engine is cranking, right? And taking those inputs to create that personalized output that's relevant. That was the important part of that question.
Awesome. So it looks like we have two more questions. Next one is, could you expand on how the business energy insight reports are sent to consumers in addition to their bill? Are they emailed after usage data is available from utility?
I can take that one too, Barbara, if you want me to. Yeah. So the utility, so we receive the consumption data from the utility on usually, so when the billing cycle ends, or we receive them on a weekly basis typically. And so as a customer, so say my bill cycle ended yesterday, it would close, and Barb and her billing team would be working on sort of however they transmit those bills, but separately Bidgely sends out those notifications typically depending on how many emails that we have sort of in the cadence, is that, if it's, in this case, a monthly summary, it would go out sort of at the beginning of the next new billing cycle with the information from the last billing cycle. So you can use that information that's pretty fresh to adapt your behavior in the next billing cycle and to inform your decisions. So it happens at the beginning of that billing cycle. And then it comes via email, or we're not using paper here, right? But we could potentially use paper as well. And those are typically done either every other month or quarterly.
Awesome. Actually, two more questions. So the next one is the program having the same success with mass market and individual homes?
As far as customer satisfaction goes, I would say, Bidgely does see very high customer satisfaction rates across, and it's also dependent on the type of program and the locality. So if there is an area with particularly low rates, electricity is not very expensive here in Georgia. That sentiment, so while overall, typically we do see sentiment from our customer satisfaction engagements as sort of higher than the norm in that area, it also ranges, right? And it can be sort of as high as in the 80%, right? Or higher. And especially for programs where customers get paid money, they tend to respond with positive sentiment to communications like that, to, sort of like in the 70%, which is generally higher than the industry sentiment towards utilities.
Awesome. And then last question, it looks like here, is it possible to outline what is contained within the BER or an example of one? Not sure if we have that handy.
We don't have it here in this presentation, but we can share that as a follow-up. So Michaela, if you want to grab that person's information, we'd be happy to share.
Awesome. Great. Let me just.
Or I can cover it verbally. I can paint a verbal picture while you're sorting through the questions, Michaela.
That's actually, I think, the last question that we have.
Okay.
I just wanted to double check that was the last one.
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about how the email is structured. When we are sharing the emails, there's always going to be a section that has the disaggregated breakdown. So it's like each usage, there's going to be, so it's like this pie chart that you can see here, but typically it's a bar chart. So there's a bar around how much they've used. There's a featured content section. So Barb and team have programs that are preloaded that are presented to this group of customers. And there's like a bit of a bigger picture. And then sort of scrolling down in the email, there are these insights that are here. They also load into the email. And then towards the bottom, there's a usage history, a 13-month usage history chart that's similar here. So our products are very modular. So a lot of the information in the email is present on the homepage of the web. And then some of our other tabs are actually where you get to dig a layer deeper for our customers.
Awesome. Great. And that is the end of our the questions that we have. So we will just wrap it up here. I will say thank you so much to Barb for joining us on today's webinar. And thank you, Hannah, for sharing all of your insights and the success that we've had with this program. It's really amazing, and hopefully it was helpful to our peers. So please take a minute if you can to answer the survey questions. It'll pop up on your screen after, but I also put it into the chat. It's going to help us kind of revive our webinar program and make sure that we're providing the most value to you. And so anything you'd like to see, definitely drop a comment in there. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining today's webinar. It was so much fun, and hopefully it was as enjoyable for you as it was for me. But thank you so much, Barb and Hannah, especially. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. And thank you again, Barb, for joining us.
Thank you.
We always appreciate when our partners are willing to talk about some of the exciting things going on. So thank you.